Howdy y'all, welcome back to my channel. So I was already filming, but I felt like I was rambling too much. So I'm gonna try and be as concise and helpful as possible with today's video. My topic today is on, give me a second, on getting an apartment. So I recently moved into an apartment and it's a studio in Brooklyn. And I'm very happy, but I think it's important to give people a little background on why this is kind of major for me, because high key, she's poor. But not to be alarming, because I can't afford to pay for this apartment, but I am on a NYU scholarship, which pays for housing and pays for my tuition, etc. And so I had been living in dorm housing up until now, basically, and it was all funded for me, and that's nice, and it still is, technically. But I really wanted to move out of dorm housing because I felt like, A, it was expensive. I still have loans out, from men, because just because you have a full ride at the school does not mean that, you don't need money for other things. And especially because I come from no money, which is why I have, the full ride, I can't really go to my mom, who's a single parent, and ask her for money because she doesn't have any. And so I was kind of in a predicament, and I was like, you know what, a good way for me to be able to save money would be to move out of dorm housing and find a cheaper place to live where I could get more money from a refund and also more bang for my buck, technically, because dorm housing is really expensive, but in terms of the value you get out of it in comparison to living in an apartment, it's really not good. So I made the decision. Ever since freshman year, I had made the decision. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna move out of dorm housing. And it's only now in junior year that I was even able to do it, because sophomore year, the pandemic happened and I was studying abroad. So I was not here. And now this year, even though it was a mess to get an apartment, I did. I'm gonna tell y'all how I did it based off of being, poor. So even though I am of a low income background, I did work last summer in an internship. I consistently save money, and I'll take out bigger loans from the loans that NYU offers me, so I can have money to spend for myself, because I don't go to my mom to ask her for stuff because I know she doesn't have. And so I had money from that in savings and the money from last summer, and luckily they called me back to work this summer, so I have money coming in this summer. And also I'm expecting a refund from NYU because of my housing, because I'm not living in dorm housing, but they still owe me scholarship money. And so that's how I showed that I had enough money to pay for rent for 12 months. In a lot of New York apartments, if you can't show 60 times income, which I could not, they expect you to have a guarantor. I went that route and it flopped. It especially flopped. Me and my friend, we had decided initially to move in together. So we were looking at apartments. I went and toured one. We wanted to sign on to one. Got to the point where we even had the lease in our emails, waiting to be signed. And they wanted us to go through a guarantor service because our parents didn't make enough to be our guarantors, because we were both poor. So we go to the guarantor service, and turns out they need our parents' information because they don't think our scholarships count as income. So we're basically left in a limbo, and then the apartment people were like, we can't help you with that, and they took the lease back basically and leased it out to somebody else. good for them, you know? Like, no hard feelings. But then I knew I needed an apartment because I didn't plan on going back home. I can't, because there's really no space for me back home. I've also outgrown being back home. And I knew from my experience last summer of being back home and doing the internship that I do not want to repeat that this summer. Especially because there is a newborn in the house now. So it's like, it's going to be a dog, a newborn, and like 5 people. And there's not enough rooms for all of us. So how in the hell am I supposed to have like a non-occupied background to be on these Zoom calls for my internship this summer? Not gonna happen. So I knew I wanted to get an apartment, and I also knew that if I got one around this time, around when I graduated, I would just, you know, move into a bigger and better one, because I would have, and I'm manifesting this, but a full-time offer somewhere that I can afford to pay for a 1-bedroom instead of a studio or whatever, or move in with my partner eventually. And so I knew that doing this would be better for me, because getting an apartment after having one is so much easier than getting one when you have never had one. So it's better to start off young and getting that done. But I also, aside from like savings and having an income, I got a credit card freshman year of college. So my credit score at the moment is like pretty good. I think it's like 750 right now. And I think that helps in applications, because they do a credit pool for all applications, which is why I would recommend not doing too many applications, because you do not want your credit pulled so many times, because that's a hard inquiry. And eventually, like, when you get to a whole bunch of them, it'll start showing up in your credit score, and it'll start taking hits on it. You do not want that for yourself. And you do not want that, especially when sometimes you don't even get an apartment in the first place. So you just like sacrifice your credit score for no reason. Also, applications for apartments are $20 each. So if you do 10 applications, that's $200, and you're only gonna get one apartment, and you're also gonna have to pay a security deposit and a first month's rent. And your first month you're going to spend a lot of money, because you got to get a mattress, a bed frame, bookshelf, microwave, this, that, etc. Like, don't do too much. Do not do too much. You know, be very selective. Don't just like take whatever. I know that it's hard to get exactly what we want. We can't all have big closets. I don't have a big closet. That's why I have a clothing rack behind me right here. But I was not willing to compromise certain things, because I feel like some of these apartments will try to give you a bathroom that's not really a bathroom, or a bathroom with no door, or like, I've seen these on Street Easy, trust me. So it's really, you really have to play the judgment game and figure out what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. But I was really not okay with some of these things, so that's why I'm calling them out. Another thing that was really nice about getting an apartment like around this time in the portable party is because of the deals that you could get for rent. Because a lot of these landlords are just trying to rent out these apartments. They're more than willing to compromise and give you a free month or 2, which I did get from my apartment. And I know a lot of people are getting them now. Even people who have apartments currently in New York City, you can renegotiate when you sign on another lease to get free months or free half months or something of that nature, because they know that demand at the moment is still lower than supply, and so they still need to consider that in terms of pricing, and we need to take advantage of that, in my opinion. You can't just be giving the landlords what they want. You gotta fight a little bit. I think other than like a good credit, and sign of and like proof of income. I'm trying to think of what else that was pretty much it, to be honest with you. Actually, having a pet or living in an apartment with another person, like if I was coming into this apartment with my partner instead of just me, that would probably be super important to my landlord. I'm not saying this to like discourage people from doing it, but sometimes some apartments have policies where it's like no shares or whatever. I find that to be bullshit, and I think it's unfair, but that's something to keep in mind. Like some apartments do not like people to share with, especially in like smaller spaces like this. So I would be wary of that if you are trying to get in a studio with 2 people or something like that. And at the end of the day, if you want to get like something with more than one person, I would definitely recommend it. If you're more than comfortable with living with other people, even if it's not your friend, but it might be a random stranger, like you could save a lot of money. If I went into an apartment right now and lived with like 3 other people like my boyfriend did, I would be saving at least $500 a month. I didn't do that, and that's my own personal sacrifice for my sanity. But and like especially because I knew that my housing would be like paid for by the school, I was willing to, you know, do a little extra expense. But if you are willing to live with other people, I would recommend it over, you know, just living by yourself. But some of us really, 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 really prefer private spaces for ourselves and our mental health, and we just gotta get it. So I recommend like saving beforehand, touring a lot of apartments, you know, figuring out what you like and you don't like and what you're willing to compromise on when it comes to an apartment. Not doing too many applications though. Tour a lot of apartments, but don't do too many applications. You probably won't want to be honest with you, because you'll probably find something in an apartment that ticks you off and you won't want to, like, you're not going to do 10 plus applications. At least you shouldn't, in my opinion. After you do those applications, you know, make sure you gather all your documents, proof of income, make sure your credit history is in check, your credit score is in check. If you're trying to move out like me with no guarantor and stuff like that, having started to get a credit card, do it now. You know, get your credit score up on your own, because that's also something that's really important. I think that made me a very like good candidate for an apartment, is because my credit score is pretty good, especially for someone at my age. Because usually stereotypically, like, people at our age don't, you know, get credit cards. They get credit cards when they move out of, like, when they're out of college and stuff like that. And that's when your credit history starts. I got a credit card freshman year because I knew that I needed like the credit score to be able to do things in the future. I actually got a credit card because my ultimate goal is to buy a house and buy property. And so, can you tell that I'm a business major? And so that's kind of why I did it. But I always recommend that people start their credit history off like now. Even if you get a credit card that's like $100 balance, that will at least bring your score up. Like, and that's what they need to see. They need to see a score. They need to see proof of income. They also need to see like some type of housing history, wherever you lived before, some type of like scholarship proof, all of that. And then, you know, just manifest and hope for the best. And ultimately, if it's for you, it'll be for you. But if it's not for you, then eventually something else. You know, I always believe that when one door closes, another door opens. When that lease dropped, I felt like the world was going to end. And then turns out, you know, God had other plans for me. And now I'm in an apartment on my own. So I feel like if I could do it, a lot of other people can. And trust and believe that it will happen for you. And just keep on trying and hoping for the best. And I hope that people who want to get an apartment end up getting one. I know New York City is really hard and it's all super difficult, but I have faith in all of us. And I'm gonna finish my face, but I'm gonna end this video now because it's at 15 minutes. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.